Okay, listen to that. That kind of rhythmic hum you get from production, right? The heart of so many operations. And when everything's running just right, it almost feels effortless. But, keeping it that way, day in, day out, with all the wear and tear, the unexpected stuff, the increasing demands, well, that takes more than just routine fixes.
Definitely more.
It takes a certain way of thinking. What really separates just good maintenance, the kind that repairs from, truly excellent, maybe even innovative maintenance.
Right, the kind that anticipates.
Yeah, the kind that seems to see problems coming or optimizes performance, almost engineers reliability right into the system.
That's the goal.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're peeling back the layers on something you might not immediately connect with, wrenches and diagnostics. We're looking at creativity. And the innovator's mindset, specifically in modern industrial maintenance and operations. And look, this isn't art class we're talking about.
Not at all.
It's about a really powerful approach that's becoming, pretty much an essential tool for professionals like you, right there on the factory floor and even beyond.
That's spot on. We've spent some real time with a fascinating stack of source material for this deep dive. We've pulled insights from these really detailed case studies, looking at reliability excellence achieved by top companies.
Okay.
We've also looked at articles exploring how you actually cultivate creativity in organizations, even, very technical settings. We got some practical perspective, too, from discussions among maintenance pros, folks sharing their actual troubleshooting tricks and wisdom online, like on Reddit.
The real world stuff.
Exactly. And we dug into research on, structured, creative problem-solving processes. So it's a pretty diverse mix.
Right.
But the common thread, the thing running through all of it, is just the huge impact that thinking differently can have on your physical assets and ultimately your operational efficiency.
So our mission here is pretty clear then. We're going to unpack what this creative or innovator's mindset actually looks like in the tangible world of industrial maintenance.
Yep.
We'll explore some concrete ways you can cultivate it, both in yourself and across your teams.
Crucial.
And, most importantly, connect the dots. Show exactly how embracing this approach translates directly into real improvements. Reliability, efficiency boosts, and, let's be honest, a positive impact on the bottom line.
Absolutely. Let's dig in.
All right. So, this idea of creativity in maintenance. Historically, it's often been seen through a pretty narrow lens, hasn't it?
Very much so. It's often viewed as, necessary but reactive. Something breaks, you go fix it.
Right.
You do the scheduled PMs based on the manual or, just time intervals. It's essential work, no question, but it's often treated like a cost center.
Yeah, you spend money to stop losing more money from downtime.
Exactly. It doesn't necessarily feel like it adds value beyond just getting things running again.
But the sources we looked at, they really suggest that the leading edge is moving way beyond that view.
Oh, significantly. Modern maintenance isn't just fixing, it's optimizing, anticipating, improving. The pros in this field are becoming, strategic problem solvers.
Less mechanic, more asset performance engineer.
That's a great way to put it. Precisely. One article we saw from Limble CMMS really framed this shift well. It talked about maintenance not just as a necessary cost center, but as a critical driver of efficiency.
Okay, that's a big shift.
It is. Because when you prevent a failure before it happens, or when you optimize a process to get, say, more uptime or throughput, you're directly hitting productivity profitability.
Right.
And that kind of transformation, it needs more than just ticking boxes on a checklist or following the standard troubleshooting guide. It demands a different kind of thinking.
And wasn't there one source, the Interlude blog, that explicitly called this a new path to excellence?
Yes, exactly. Creativity in industrial maintenance and reliability. A new path to excellence. That phrase is telling, isn't it?
It implies the old ways aren't enough anymore.
Pretty much. It suggests that just relying on the traditional toolkit, standard procedures, scheduled maintenance, reactive repairs, it might not cut it for achieving top-tier performance in today's complex, high-speed environments. The competition just demands more agility, more adaptability.
And it often runs up against that ingrained mindset, right? This is how we've always done it thing.
Oh, absolutely. Our sources, especially from the EU Business School and some discussions around agility, they pinpoint that exact mindset as the direct opposite of the innovator's way of thinking.
So the creative pros, they push back on that.
They do. They aren't satisfied with the status quo. They're willing to pause, to actually question why things are done a certain way. Is there a better method, a more efficient way? a more reliable way. It's about being willing to challenge those assumptions baked into long-standing practices.
Okay, so if we agree it's not about painting murals on the machines,
Definitely not.
but it's a different way of tackling technical problems, what does this innovator's mindset actually involve? What are the key parts we'd see in a maintenance pro who's got this?
Right, that's the core question. And it's not about some mystical artistic talent. It's really a set of attitudes and skills, very practical ones, that apply directly to the problems you face every single day.
Okay.
So drawing from how innovators and creative folks were described in our sources, a huge piece is curiosity and open-mindedness. It really starts there. Asking questions.
Not just what broke.
Exactly. More like, why did it break like this? Or did our process maybe contribute to this? The EU Business School source talked about being a lifelong learner, constantly exploring new possibilities, new tech, new methods, and being genuinely open to different perspectives, listening to operators, engineers, maybe even people from totally different fields. Agility, they point out, means rejecting that fixed, this is how it is, thinking.
That really connects with what we saw in those maintenance pro discussions online. So much of the practical troubleshooting wisdom was about asking the right questions.
Totally.
Understanding how the machine should work perfectly to figure out what's wrong, not just stopping at the first symptom. That's curiosity driving the diagnosis, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And that deep curiosity, it naturally flows into the next critical piece, problem-solving ability. Creative maintenance folks aren't just fixing a problem, they're finding the best solution for it.
Right.
This means being able to look at challenges from multiple angles, as Staffing Solutions put it. Not just the mechanical side, but electrical, operational, environmental factors, maybe even human factors.
Seeing the whole system.
Precisely. Approaching things with a solutions-oriented mindset. A breakdown isn't just a disaster. It's an opportunity, a chance to understand the system better and figure out a more robust fix. This is really the heart of smart troubleshooting, staying calm, breaking down the complexity, using logic, critical thinking, and just digging until you find the real cause.
The Reddit thread was packed with examples of that, wasn't it? The little techniques people shared.
Yeah.
Start simple. Use your senses. Eyes, ears, nose. Ask operators specific things like, what was it doing right before it died? Or asking yourself those analytical questions. What does this part need to get to do its job?
Yeah.
Or what is the machine not doing right now that tells me something?
All great examples. Analyzing from multiple angles, using logic creatively.
Okay, what's next?
Then you get to the core skill, creativity and imagination. This is where you genuinely think outside the box.
The classic phrase.
It is, but it applies. It's about generating novel ideas, envisioning possibilities that aren't the obvious ones. Sources like EU Business School and Staffing Solutions mention this. It's not just fixing today's failure, but maybe imagining a future where that failure is just impossible, or where the process is way more efficient.
So coming up with non-obvious solutions.
Exactly. Maybe it's a different material for a part that keeps wearing out, or a totally different sequence for doing a task, or even an unconventional way to diagnose something.
Which, I guess, leads naturally to risk-taking and resilience, because if you're trying novel stuff, some of it's bound to fail, right?
Absolutely. Sources like EU Business School and Staffing Solutions highlighted that innovators, they aren't afraid to experiment, to try untested ideas if the potential payoff looks good.
And you need to be okay with things not working out.
Crucially, you have to understand that failure isn't the end. It's part of learning. You need resilience. You use setbacks as learning experiences. Agoda and EU Business School specifically talked about cultivating a fail-forward attitude.
Fail forward. I like that.
Yeah. Learn quickly from what didn't work, adjust, try again. Perseverance is key here too. Trying something new might take a few tries. You might hit unexpected snags. You need that persistence to push through.
Makes sense. And you probably don't do this alone.
Very rarely. Which brings us to collaboration and communication. Big innovations seldom happen in a vacuum. Great ideas often get sparked or refined or actually brought to life by talking with others. Staffing Solutions stressed building strong networks internally, actively getting input from colleagues in different areas.
Like maintenance talking to engineering.
Or operations or safety. Exactly. Environments where diverse ideas can flourish, as EU Business School and Agoda describe them, those are the places where innovation really thrives. It means effective teamwork within maintenance, sure, but also collaborating well with operators, engineers, production managers, even suppliers sometimes. Sharing knowledge, listening, communicating your own ideas, clearly essential skills.
That collaboration with operators is such a prime example in maintenance. The best techs often seem to have the best relationships with the folks running the gear.
Because they get the early warnings.
Yeah, unique insights into how the machine behaves that maintenance might miss in a quick check. That's practical collaboration for problem solving.
Totally. And the final trait, which might sound a bit soft, but it's really relevant here, empathy.
Empathy. How does that fit in?
Well, in a business context, the EU Business School talks about user or developer empathy, understanding the needs of the people you're serving. Apply that to maintenance. It means deeply understanding the needs and viewpoints of everyone affected by the equipment and by what maintenance does.
So the operator who needs it to be reliable and, easy to run.
Yep. And the production manager who needs throughput, minimum downtime, the safety team focused on hazards, and the bigger business goals the assets are supposed to support.
Okay.
When you approach challenges with that kind of empathy, you design solutions that fix the real pain points for people and support the business goals. You move beyond just a technical patch to making a truly valuable improvement.
So it's thinking about the whole system, the machine, the process, and the people. Stepping into their shoes really changes how you see the problem and what counts as a good solution.
You got it.
Okay, so we have this picture of the creative maintenance pro. But people aren't just born like this, are they? How do you actually cultivate this kind of thinking, not just in one star player, but across a whole team or department?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And you're right. Creativity in an organization, it doesn't just magically appear. It needs conscious effort. You have to build an environment that actively encourages and supports it. Staffing solutions really highlighted that.
It could be learned, nurtured?
Yes, the EU Business School research confirms that. It's not purely innate. It can be developed, practiced, enhanced by the right environment.
And the sources seem pretty unanimous that leadership's crucial role is, crucial.
Absolutely paramount. Leaders can't just be signing off on parts orders. They need to be visible champions for innovation, for creative problem solving.
What does that look like practically?
It means providing resources. Maybe it's dedicated time, maybe it's budget for training or tech, or just the simple authority to try something new. They need to actively support teams when they experiment, provide air cover if an idea doesn't quite work out.
Right.
That CPS case study we looked at, it really stressed that managers have to commit to the results and the implementation, not just greenlighting a brainstorm session. They need to provide the approval and the resources to actually test and implement the solutions.
To have that leadership buy-in and active backing, good ideas just die on the vine.
Pretty much. And right alongside leadership support is building psychological safety. This is foundational.
Meaning people feel safe to speak up.
Exactly. Safe to share a half-baked idea, ask what feels like a stupid question, propose something unconventional without fearing ridicule or criticism or getting dinged on their performance review. Staffing Solutions talked about creating an open, non-judgmental space.
Safe spaces for experimentation.
That's the phrase EU Business School and Agoda used. It's vital. If your team is scared of looking foolish or getting blamed if an experiment fails, they'll just stick to the safest, most predictable path. Innovation. Dead.
So the culture needs to value the effort to innovate, even if the immediate outcome isn't perfect, as long as you learn something.
Precisely. And to fuel that creative thinking, you've got to keep feeding the brain. Encouraging continuous learning is key.
Training, workshops.
Yeah, it could be technical skills, problem-solving workshops, seminars on new tech, even just exposure to how other industries do things. EU Business School, Agoda, Staffing Solutions, all pointed to this. It expands your toolkit, fuels curiosity, gives you more diverse building blocks for creative solutions. You can't connect dots you don't know exist.
It's like building a bigger library of knowledge in your head and across the team.
Great analogy. And moving beyond just individual learning, you need structured collaboration and idea sharing to really tap into the collective brain power.
How do you structure that?
Promote cross-disciplinary collaboration. Maybe form diverse teams, pull together a maintenance tech, a process engineer, an operator to tackle a stubborn problem. EU Business School, Agoda, the CPS study, all advocated for this. Set up regular brainstorming or idea sharing sessions, maybe even with a facilitator.
Are there specific techniques?
Yeah, the Creativity at Work source mentions some good ones, like actively challenging assumptions, asking, what if the opposite of this common belief were true? Or using structured methods like SCAMPER.
SCAMPER, what's that?
It's an acronym. Substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to other uses, eliminate, reverse, or rearrange. It's like a checklist of prompts to systematically look at something and brainstorm ways to change or improve it.
Huh. You could totally apply that to maintenance. Substitute materials, combine procedures, adapt tools.
Exactly. Modify sequences, put existing gear to other uses, eliminate wasted steps, reverse or rearrange the order of things. It gives you a framework to generate options you might otherwise miss.
Clever. Any others?
Cross-pollination is another powerful one. Looking for solutions in totally unrelated fields. The classic example is hospitals learning from Formula One pit crews about rapid, error-free teamwork.
Wow, okay.
You wouldn't think they connect, but the principles translate. Also, framing and reframing problems, looking at the same issue from different angles. And maybe less obvious for a technical field, but using arts-based methods sometimes.
Like painting. Seriously.
Yeah. The CPS case study mentioned an example where collaborative painting helped a team surface hidden dynamics that were affecting their project. It can be a catalyst for different kinds of dialogue.
Interesting.
But that CPS study also cautioned collaboration, especially across different groups, needs a careful approach and effective processes. And the team mix matters, balancing expertise with personalities.
Right. That study also found that just having the diverse team and the brainstorming wasn't enough. It needed real commitment to results.
A crucial point. And to really empower teams, you also have to be providing autonomy and resources. People need freedom to explore promising ideas without being micromanaged constantly.
Give them ownership.
Yeah, Staffing Solutions in EU Business School talked about that. And it includes access to innovation-friendly resources. That could be dedicated time, a small budget for experiments, access to data, or the right tools and tech to test things out.
If you want creativity, you need to give people the space and the means. Makes sense.
Precisely. And finally, to keep it going, you need a recognition and rewards. Acknowledging creative contributions, maybe a formal award, maybe public praise, maybe just celebrating a successful implementation, it matters.
Motivates people.
It does. Agoda and Staffing Solutions stress that it motivates others and reinforces the culture you want.
And circling back to failure, the recognition system needs to handle that too.
Absolutely. The whole culture has to embrace the power of learning from failure. As we said, risk-taking means some ideas won't pan out. The environment has to see failure as a valuable learning experience. EU Business School, Agoda, Staffing Solutions kept hitting this point. Analyzing mistakes constructively, rather than assigning blame, is essential. That CPS study learned a lot by digging into why some of their implementation efforts fell short.
So it's a whole system, really.
Yeah.
Led from the top, supported throughout.
It really is a conscious, multifaceted effort.
Okay, we've defined the mindset, talked about how to nurture it. Now let's get down to brass tacks. What does this actually look like day to day? How does creative thinking change maintenance operations on the floor?
Yeah, this is where it gets really practical and I think exciting. One of the most direct impacts is in enhanced troubleshooting. As we saw in those online discussions, effective troubleshooting is the bedrock of the job, right? And it inherently requires creative thinking.
It's definitely more than just following a flowchart. It's like forming hypotheses, testing them smart, adapting as you go.
Exactly. And those Reddit tips illustrate that practical creativity perfectly. Start easy, least intrusive things first. Use systematic logic, critical thinking to rule things out. Use your deep knowledge of how it should work to spot what's off.
Using your senses too. Listening, smelling, looking for subtle clues.
Right. Asking operators those targeted questions. Always make that noise. Anything weird happen just before it stopped? Breaking down big, messy problems into smaller, manageable pieces.
Knowing when to step back if you're stuck, take a break.
Crucial. Using all your resources, manuals, schematics, but yeah, increasingly Googling it, checking forums to see if someone else hit this weird issue.
And a big part of creative troubleshooting is getting to the root cause.
Yeah.
Right. Not just replacing the broken part.
Huge. Both the Reddit thread and the 30 case studies emphasize this. Getting to the why behind the failure requires digging deeper than the symptom. It demands creative analysis to trace the chain of events, the underlying conditions, so you can stop it from happening again.
And being willing to challenge your own first guess.
Yeah, trying to prove your own theory wrong helps avoid that tunnel vision.
Okay, so better troubleshooting. What else?
Well, creativity really drives that shift towards more sophisticated strategies, moving away from just reactive firefighting towards proactive and predictive strategies. The sources show that teams embracing this innovative mindset are the ones successfully implementing things like condition-based monitoring, PDM.
But it takes creativity to figure out what to monitor and how.
Absolutely. It's creative to sift through sensor data or operational parameters and spot patterns that signal a potential failure before it happens. Implementing condition-based monitoring, like the successful program at We Energies and the case studies, that takes creative thinking. Selecting the right things to monitor, setting the right thresholds, interpreting the data meaningfully.
And those lubrication excellence programs you mentioned.
Right. Case studies from Alcoa, Valero, Invista, Energizer, PCA Mill, they go way beyond just greasing on a schedule. They involve creative analysis of lubricants, filtration, application methods to drastically cut wear and failure. That takes techs and engineers thinking creatively about, fluid dynamics and material science in a really practical way.
What about things like FMEA or root cause analysis?
Those are structured processes, sure, but doing them well requires creative, analytical thinking, brainstorming potential failure modes that aren't obvious, or digging for root causes that might be missed by a less imaginative team. Siemens Feed, Raytheon, Alcoa Power Plant use these effectively. That takes creativity within the structure.
And this creative strategic thinking applies to process improvement too, right? Optimizing workflows.
Directly. The Limble CMMS source pointed that out, and the case studies show it. Look at improvements in planning and scheduling at places like Miller Coors, Raytheon, Alcoa Power Plant. It's creative to redesign work processes, to cut wasted time, improve coordination, make sure parts and tools are ready.
Standardizing practices too.
Yeah, like at Boeing and Alcoa Power Plant. That's not just writing stuff down. It's creatively designing the best way to do a task, then making it repeatable. And think about Toyota's goal of reducing maintenance activities altogether. That demands incredible creative thinking about design, operations, tolerances to make stuff so reliable it just needs less maintenance.
Now, all of this, the troubleshooting, the strategies, the process improvements, they don't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Technology must play a role.
A huge role. Technology and tools are critical enablers. You can have the most creative team, but if they can't organize information, track performance, manage workflows effectively, their impact is going to be limited.
This is where the CMMS comes in.
Exactly. A modern CMS, a computerized maintenance management system, isn't just admin software anymore. It's a fundamental platform for strategic, creative maintenance.
Oh, so what does it enable specifically?
Well, our sources show it centralizes all that crucial data and documentation, manuals, drawings, procedures, makes them instantly available when you're troubleshooting. It provides complete asset history gold dust for diagnosing recurring problems and doing root cause analysis.
Right.
It manages work orders efficiently, letting teams move beyond just reacting and actually plan and schedule proactive and predictive work based on strategy, not just panic.
Okay.
It lets you document repairs and issues in detail, building that knowledge base for the future. It gives you reports on performance, downtime costs, asset reliability, PM compliance, the data you need to spot areas ripe for creative improvement and measure if your changes actually worked.
And helps with team communication?
Definitely. Supports communication and knowledge sharing, making that collaboration easier. It's really the platform that enables shifting from just executing tasks reactively to managing assets strategically.
And there are systems out there designed for this.
Yeah, absolutely. For instance, a system like Atlas CMMS provides that kind of robust functionality. It lets maintenance pros move beyond just reacting. They can leverage data, streamline workflows, implement those advanced strategies we talked about. It effectively supports their creative problem solving and their drive for reliability excellence. Tools like Atlas CMMS are really foundational for applying that innovator's mindset systematically.
Got it. And when companies manage to pull all this together, the creative mindset, good processes, the right tools like Atlas CMSs, the results can be pretty dramatic.
Oh, transformative. The 30 case studies document tons of examples from industry where this approach really paid off. Companies like Harley-Davidson, Frito-Lay, Siemens Feed, We Energies, BMW, Miller Coors, Alcoa, Raytheon, Toyota, Energizer, Honda, Valero Energy, PCA Mill, Boeing, which was specifically noted for innovation, they've achieved incredible maintenance excellence.
What kind of results are we talking about?
Things like near 100% uptime in key areas. BMW, Batesville Casket saw that. Huge drops in unscheduled downtime. Siemens Feed, PCA Mill achieved that. Massive cost savings just from optimizing lubrication. Alcoa, Valero, Energizer, PCA Mill demonstrated that. And big gains in productivity and efficiency because assets are just available and running better. Frito-Lay, Miller Coors, Alcoa, energizer.
Wow.
These aren't just luck or throwing money at problems. They are the direct, tangible results you get from a creative, strategic approach to maintenance.
It really does elevate maintenance, doesn't it? From just a necessary cost to a real driver of performance and competitive advantage.
It absolutely does. It changes the game.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly positive, almost like a silver bullet. But changing mindsets, changing cultures. That's never easy, is it? What are some of the real-world challenges teams and leaders face when they try to implement this?
You're right. It's definitely not always a smooth path. A big one is simply balancing demands. The urgent always seems to scream louder than the important, right?
Tell me about it.
Finding the actual time and, frankly, the mental energy for creative thinking, for experimentation, for process improvement when you're constantly dealing with emergency repairs, PM schedules, production hollering. It's tough. Agoda highlighted this: leadership needs to deliberately integrate innovation into core activities, not treat it as an if we have time thing.
Because you never have time.
Exactly. It's easy to say, be more creative, but finding that hour when you're juggling breakdowns is another story. Another major hurdle is overcoming resistance.
People liking the status quo.
Yeah, people get comfortable with routines. Introducing new ways of thinking, questioning old assumptions, proposing something unconventional, it can hit skepticism, inertia, sometimes outright resistance. From the team, other departments, even management if they're not fully bought in yet.
That CPS case study mentioned resistance.
Explicitly. Gaining acceptance, internally and externally, is often part of the process itself. Some models of innovation, like the simplex process mentioned in that study, actually include gaining acceptance as a distinct stage you have to navigate.
So having the idea is one thing, getting people on board is another battle.
Often, yes. And then there are the practical challenges around team dynamics and implementation. Even with a willing team, making it happen can be tricky. That CPS case study, despite having people open to creativity, hit significant roadblocks during implementation.
What went wrong?
It showed that just having a diverse team or a good plan from a brainstorm isn't enough. Success really depended on a few things. Real, ongoing commitment from everyone, leaders and team members, to getting actual results, not just generating ideas. Defining tasks very precisely. Getting the right resources, time, budget, people, consistent management support throughout implementation, staying focused, and having effective facilitation, especially when things got difficult.
And relying on external partners was tricky.
Yeah, they found relying heavily on external partners for key implementation tasks didn't work well unless those partners were just as deeply invested in the outcome as the internal team.
That study really drives home that the creative spark is just the start. Making it real takes serious execution discipline.
Absolutely. And one more key lesson from that study was about knowing your resources. It's easy to dream big in creative sessions.
Grand, ambitious ideas.
Right. But the study stressed choosing goals and solutions that your internal team can actually pull off, given their skills, time, budget, even if a riskier, more ambitious idea seems tempting.
So balancing creativity with feasibility.
Exactly.
Right.
The facilitator or internal champion needs to help assess that feasibility and figure out how to increase the odds of success if you do go for a riskier option. It's about, grounded creativity, big thinking, but with a realistic view of how to make it happen.
Wow. Okay, that was genuinely a deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground on creativity and maintenance.
We really have. Let's maybe try to pull the main threads together for everyone listening.
Good idea.
So, key takeaway. Creativity isn't just a nice extra in modern industrial maintenance. It's really becoming a vital skill. It involves a specific mindset, right? Characterized by curiosity, strong analytical and problem-solving chops, imagination, resilience when things go wrong, good collaboration, and that practical empathy for the operation and the people.
And cultivating that mindset, it takes deliberate effort. It needs leadership championing it, building psychological safety so people aren't afraid to try things, committing to continuous learning, setting up ways to collaborate and share ideas, maybe using techniques like Scamper or looking outside your industry, giving teams autonomy and resources, and importantly, recognizing good tries and learning from the ones that don't pan out.
Exactly. And when you put all that into practice, it really changes maintenance. You get much better troubleshooting, you can successfully implement proactive and predictive strategies that actually prevent failures, and you foster that continuous process improvement that optimizes how you manage assets and workflows.
And technology is the amplifier here. The right tools aren't just for record keeping, they enable strategy. A solid CMMS provides that essential foundation: central data, asset history, workflow management, planning tools, documentation, performance reports, team communication. It frees people up to think more strategically and creatively. Systems like Atlas CMS, for example, offer those kinds of capabilities, empowering teams to apply their creative problem-solving effectively.
And ultimately, embracing this whole innovator's mindset, it elevates your role, your impact. It transforms maintenance from just being seen as a cost center fixing breaks to being recognized as a strategic asset, one that proactively drives efficiency, boosts reliability, and really contributes to the company's bottom line and its competitive edge.
So we'd really encourage you, maybe after listening to this, just take a moment, reflect on your own practices or your teams. Where are those stubborn problems that the standard fixes haven't solved? Where could a bit more curiosity about the real root cause, a little more questioning of how we've always done it, maybe brainstorming something unconventional, or even just asking an operator a slightly different question? Where could that make a real difference?
Yeah, think about those challenges you hit regularly. A bottleneck, a recurring failure, maybe trouble getting buy-in for an idea. Could you reframe that problem? Could you look at how a totally different industry solved something similar? Could using a structured technique like Scamper unlock a new solution you hadn't thought of?
Because the complexity of systems, the demands for efficiency, the sheer amount of data available now, it all demands more than just routine responses. Routine keeps the lights on, for sure, but creative thinking is what makes your operation run better, safer, more profitably.
So, the provocative thought to leave you with is this. How can you use your growing creative and analytical skills supported by powerful tools, like a capable CMMS such as Atlas CMMS, to go beyond just fixing yesterday's problems and managing today's schedule? How can you proactively engineer the reliability and performance of the future? That's the challenge, but it's also the huge opportunity for today's maintenance and operations professionals.